opportunity. So thank you very much for that. So over to you, Matt, and I'll probably be leaving this with you from now on. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Derek, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Before I start, I just wanted to wish our Muslim friends and colleagues a Ramadan Mubarak. And I also wanted to start, I'm going to talk about the importance of raising awareness of research opportunities. Perhaps more useful for us today is we're going to talk also about some of the challenges of doing that. But before I get to that point, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. The first is to thank the Make It Public campaign group. That's a group of individuals, organisations, members of the public from across the sector who all have a common passion and commitment to not only promote research transparency, but to make it possible and to ensure that it's happened. And if it wasn't for that group, we wouldn't be here today. Enormous amount of work and guidance and careful thought has been provided by them, and there are some that are going to talk to us today from that group. Some of you are either part of that group or your organisations are part of that group, and a big thank you to you. If I can be so bold, though, to also put some particular thanks to my team at the Health Research Authority. The Make It Public campaign is absolutely a partnership. It's across all organisations, and everyone's putting a lot of work in. But the team at the Health Research Authority have been putting a lot of work in, still are, in order to put this week on. If anyone's ever put on a single workshop that involves external speakers and breakout rooms and stuff, you know how much blood, sweat, tears and fear it can take. Well, these guys are putting on 3 workshops, 2 other events, publishing a wonderful report, and all kinds of activity like the communication side of things going on in the background. So if I could be so bold to thank them, not just on my own personal behalf, it's a pleasure and a privilege to work with people like that, but also on your behalf and on behalf of the Make It Public campaign group. Also, just to say up front, I'm not presenting slides, so you won't see the slides move on. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, and I'm going to talk about why is raising awareness of research opportunities important, and then I'm going to go on and talk about some of what I think some of the challenges are. I'll start though with just this is what research sounds like when people do not know about it or how to participate. Not a lot happens. And apart from the obvious problem of it's difficult to do research with people, well, without people, there are, of course, many reasons why it's important to raise the awareness of research opportunities, and I'm going to cover a couple of those now. From a researcher perspective, recruiting enough participants within the time available and funds available is a major hurdle. If anything we can do to improve the efficiency and reliability of recruitment not only benefits research, but of course also the individuals that fund research. And I don't mean by that funders like the National Institute for Health and Care Research or a charity or a pharmaceutical company. One way or another, typically it's us, it's members of the public who fund research that happens in the UK. And then finally, as well as all of that, then of course we're all depending on timely results from that research in order to improve health and social care in the United Kingdom. From a health and social care perspective, it's not enough simply to recruit a large number of participants. We're not just numbers, a sample, a group of entries in a spreadsheet. We're individuals, and we're a diverse collection of individuals across society. And it's crucial to ensure that participants are representative of the population who will ultimately benefit from those research findings. And unfortunately, it's still the case that many drugs, devices, or just our general approach to health and social care are not tested or evaluated on people who are similar to those who ultimately will use them. Now, I'm sure we'll touch on many other reasons why it's important to raise awareness of research opportunities through the discussion. But I want to switch now to something which I think is probably going to be more useful to us, which is, well, why is it so hard to do and how can we meet those challenges? From a public perspective, people want to get involved with and participate in research. And more than that, they have a moral right to. As I've already said, they're probably paying for the research itself, and it's intended to address their needs. we'll hear from colleagues, I think just seen Imogen appear, so we'll hear from colleagues from people in from Be Part of Research that actually demand's not the issue. That we hear time and time again that patients and the public are frustrated that they can't find out what research is going on and what is relevant to them. The demand is out there. And what we'll also hear, I'm sure, from Imogen is that when the opportunity is known, the sign up is huge and rapid. So what's going wrong? Well, fundamentally, I think this is about silos. I think that researchers operate often in completely different environments, whether that's linguistically or physically or online, than our potential participants. Placing our lists of studies on our websites is a bit like trying to advertise your house for sale through, I don't know, Mushroom Growers Weekly or something. You might get lucky that someone's passionate about growing mushrooms and is also looking for a new home, but I can't imagine it's a very successful strategy very often to sell your house. So we need to take our opportunities to the places and the spaces that people are in for them to even notice. And that's true geographically, of course. There are many a patient that lives in Lewis who would be excited to hear about a study relevant to them, only then to be disappointed to find out it's recruiting in Liverpool. But it's also true of less tangible segregations in our society, different cultural or economic communities, different online communities, the digitally engaged compared to the digitally distanced. But even that's not enough. Even if we're in the right places at the right time, we have to understand who we are competing with for attention. Now, the concept of competition, I'll say very quickly, doesn't feel right in the context of the concept of competition doesn't feel very right in the context of research recruitment. We have to apply it really very carefully, because the dividing line between encouraging and coercing is a very, very faint one. But we do need to be a bit savvy about the art of communications, I think. And part of that is understanding what and who we are competing against, who else is vying for our time and attention. Now, some people will sit at their desk, their computer, their laptop, their iPad, or in their doctor's surgery and think, I wonder what research is out there relevant to me. And off they go and actively search for it. And it's wonderful when that happens. My guess is that actually happens a vanishingly small percentage of the time. What we're usually doing is we're competing against whatever else is in our attention grabbing environment. What's scrolling past us on our timelines on Facebook or Twitter, or in our physical environment, or what other outlets for our altruistic and volunteering activity would we be interested in spending our time on? What other ways of learning about or engaging with our health and care are we attracted to? So in that sense, our competitors are cat videos, the stack of old magazines on the doctor's kind of waiting room table, food banks, self-help websites. Now, we shouldn't go too far. I'm not advocating to turn research recruitment into a kind of cutthroat marketing and advertising campaign. Clearly, that would be inappropriate. But one of the implications of that we have to think about, I think, which is, whilst it is task and channel dependent, we probably only have about 10 seconds to grab someone's attention. And think about that for a minute. Well, actually, you'll probably think about it for about 10 seconds, to be frank. But think about how we currently present opportunities for research. Could someone take all of the information in they need to take in, get interested, and click on that call to action in 10 seconds? Probably not in the way we currently do things often, I think. And the final challenge I wanted to raise is one of trust. Grabbing someone's attention for those precious few seconds is not enough if we are not trusted, or we are not using trusted channels or intermediaries to reach them. Many people do trust research and researchers. Research and researchers are rated as the most trusted in society. I sometimes wonder whether that's because everyone else is moving down the list rather than researchers moving up, but it is nonetheless still true. But many do not trust research and researchers, and often it's in the very communities that we would like to engage with more. I was chatting to one of our public contributors earlier in the week, and she's given me permission to pass on this story. Now, she's a person of colour, and she said that in her community, many don't think that research or even healthcare is for them. Now, it's not her belief, but she relayed words from her community that science is not for us, it's for white people. We don't want the white man testing their treatments on their diseases on us. And if you think about what's packaged up in that statement, how could we be more open and accessible to communities like that? Now, of course, That's a complex set of issues which are probably more about wider society and inequalities and systemic prejudice than research itself. But it is the landscape in which we are having to operate. So it's important for us to have awareness and understanding of potential barriers that may restrict members of the public getting involved in research. And we'll hear some really interesting work from colleagues from the Ethnic Minority Research Inclusion Initiative on this topic, I'm sure. Now, identifying these and many other challenges and putting measures in place to counter them is absolutely essential for the delivery of transparent research, which itself is essential for raising the awareness of research opportunities, which is essential for the delivery of inclusive research opportunities, which is essential for the delivery of high quality health and social care for all. So I'm really looking forward to this afternoon's discussion and for sharing both the importance and how we're addressing those challenges. Thank you, Derek.
Hi, Matt. So just to say that Derek's had to duck out to go to his next event, so I'm going to basically give it straight back to you to take us forward. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Will. So, and I'm going to hand straight over to Imogen, who's going to talk to us about NIHR's Be Part of Research. Over to you, Imogen.
Thank you, Matt, for that introduction. And I think you're absolutely right to say that demand of people is not necessarily the biggest barrier for people taking part in research. We saw through COVID that 500,000 people signed up to the NHS COVID-19 vaccine research registry. And it was really telling, I think, that outpouring of public willingness to contribute to the NHS through taking part in research. And the vast majority of those people have indicated that they want to be involved. They want to hear about other research opportunities beyond that. I think digital can really support this, putting in place an easy way for people to hear from researchers about research opportunities and to ensure that they have a really positive experience of taking part. So I wanted to talk to you about the Be Part of Research service, which is basically seeks to support the health and social care system across the UK to help the public to find and take part in health and social care research opportunities. It's a one-stop shop. It contains information about participation opportunities, involvement opportunities. It's got links to other registries and services and has other resources to support the general public into research. And importantly, it carries the NHS logo, I think really demonstrating to the public that it's a service that they can trust and it should be a part of their healthcare journey. So the service is in three parts. The first part is a website, which has been going a few years now, and that gives people the information about what studies are taking place in their condition. So what that does is basically say to people that no longer are they dependent on their clinicians to tell them about research opportunities. And we know sometimes that in busy consultations, healthcare professionals don't have the time to really talk through what opportunities might be available. They might also think that people are not interested in taking part in research. So too often that information exchange can't take place in a normal consultation. But having that website means that people in the comfort of their own homes can type in their condition and where they live and find out what studies are taking place near them. They can get information on how they can take part and what the exclusion criteria might be so that they can check whether they're suitable to go forward into those studies. So that's been going a few years now, and it takes a feed from a couple of registries, clinicaltrials.gov and ISRCTN, which enable people to find out about the full range of studies. We've actually introduced a new service, a registry that will actually take that information directly out to people who've registered an interest in taking part. So this involves a simple sign-up functionality where people enter in details about where they live, some basic information about their age and what conditions they're interested in. And that enables researchers to, via the Be Part of Research team, to basically send out invitations to take part in studies that those individuals might be eligible for and that they'd be interested in. So it really uses the information that they've given us to match them. It's a matchmaking service to give them information about invitations on how they can take part. We launched this service in private beta last summer, and we have 80,000 people registered to date. We haven't gone through to public launch yet because we're still undertaking work with members of the public and community groups to look at how we can really improve that service before we do the major public launch, which we're hoping to be doing in the summer. Matt mentioned Mushroom Growers Weekly as being a place where people probably wouldn't want to be visiting to get through to find out about research. We are very fortunate in that we've got a really healthy collaboration with the NHS though. So one place people do go for health information is the nhs.uk website, and also the NHS app, where we have now around 40 million users of that. We've seen, now we have a little feed through from there. We've seen a large number of people coming through and wanting to register on this service, which really shows, I think, that the public enthusiasm for this, and hopefully that people can see taking part in research as a natural extension of their healthcare journey. So we've got a number of improvements planned. As I said, we're working with members of the public to hear about how this works for them and to look at how we can improve that for them, and also how we can target people that possibly wouldn't hear about it ordinarily, and to make sure everybody across the UK has an opportunity to hear about this work. We're also working with researchers to make sure it meets their needs, to make sure that it's working for them in terms of putting them in touch with potential participants that meet their requirements, to help study recruitment in a really efficient way, which may well free up researcher time and resources to actually focus on the things that they can do. We're also looking at enhancements in the future to look at things like appointment reminders, and to put people in touch with information about the outcome of their studies. So through this service, we're really hoping that there will be a lot of take up across the public, so that they can find out more about how to take part in research through this service. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Imogen. If we can move on, yeah, I'm going to hand over to Francis now. I'm going to talk a bit about panel on best practice.
Hello, I'm Frances Mossy, and I'm the Patient Research Champion for Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells NHS Trust. And just a little about myself. Prior to my retirement from the then Kenton Medway Clinical Research Network, I unfortunately developed cancer of the breast and followed a year later by colon cancer. I now am, and I remain clear of both, and this, of course, is all thanks to research. Upon retiring, I decided to give something back, and here I am. The Research Champion's role, previously known as the Patient Research Ambassador's role, was set up by the National Institute of Health Research, Patient and Public Involvement, and was introduced to Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells NHS Trust to raise awareness among the patients and the public that they were part of a research active trust. Working with the other volunteers in this role, a champion provides a support service to patients involved in research trials. The role further supports in assisting healthcare and research staff in supporting recruitment onto research studies, as well as more broadly on promoting the importance of research to healthcare providers and the wider public. Recently, a service evaluation was undertaken by myself and a small team to obtain a better understanding of the impact of the initial Patient Research Ambassador's role on research programmes, and the findings of this are due to be released shortly. The Champion Service took a very practical approach in increasing visibility of the information about the Trust being research active, as well as showcasing the Champion's role itself. A leaflet was put together and distributed throughout the Trust to raise awareness of the role. This included working very closely with the volunteer service within the Trust to promote both the Research Champion's role and the wider research opportunities. The role was highlighted via social media channels and at subcommittees of the board to raise awareness of research participants' views to ensure the health form service changes. Developing a strong relationship with the wider volunteer service was key. The volunteer service played an important role in highlighting if there is someone who may be suitable for the research champion's role. The research champions have played an active role in trust events and celebrations, for instance, International Clinical Trials Day, and this year, NHS 75, both to raise awareness of the importance and the nature of research opportunities in the trust and the champion's role itself. A key benefit and feature of the Research Champion Scheme is that it is run and directed by volunteers in the activities it does, together with the Research and Innovations team. This gives the scheme a unique perspective on how to raise awareness among patients and the public, as the approach is guided by those recruited from that audience. Another key benefit of the scheme is that it allows for conversation and to break ground on discussion and research opportunities outside of the conversations with research consultants and other medical staff. Similarly, if an individual has raised an interest in being involved in research, the Research Champion Scheme will begin the initial recruitment, subsequently giving the consultant or researcher more time with the patient to focus the research. In short, the scheme helps ensure consultants, researchers, and patients get the most out of their conversations on involvement in research. And of course, you have to admit, a patient taking part in a research study is always voluntary. Now, going on and finally about research studies, and I would say, agreeing with Imogen, that since COVID, the public are much more aware of research and appear more comfortable to be involved. However, it is important to remember that it is voluntary to be part of research. You need to give people space to consider the information, providing information in different formats, also to underserved communities and in plain language. And this can then help raise awareness, enable good discussions between patients, researchers, and with consultants. Thank you very much.
Wonderful stuff, Frances. Thank you very much. And Frances has been great support for this whole campaign as well. So really appreciate everything you're doing for us. Going to move on now to I don't know who's going to kick us off, but Abby, Lewis, and Jenny, I think, are going to talk to us about the Ethnic Minority Research Inclusion Hub in Leeds.
Thank you for that. So I'll kick us off. So my name is Lewis Palmer, and I'm the Emery Hub Lead for South Yorkshire. So I'm here today with Abby Wilson, who's the Hub Lead for West Yorkshire. So there's 3 Hub Leads, and we've got one of which is not here today, but we're also a part of the Emery project, covering Yorkshire and Humber between us and working with communities to try and help make research more inclusive. And so we've got a few slides that we put together just talking about a practical example or practical method that we've used for sort of talking about research with communities. Could we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Yeah, so the method we've used is something called a helpful conversation, which is effectively a conversation involving both researchers and people from ethnic minority communities, and it can happen in sort of a virtual or a face-to-face space. So what we're doing is bringing people together to allow a focused or in-depth discussion of a particular topic. So we often do these in smaller groups where people feel more able to share their ideas. So next slide, please. Yep, so we've got an example of a helpful conversation that we did, which was around cultural awareness. So this was a sort of topic that came up quite a lot for us. Communities were saying that they wanted to be approached in a culture sensitive way, and researchers were saying that they had issues sort of building rapport and building those relationships with communities. So we thought, why not bring people together and actually do a focused, helpful conversation on this? So before the helpful conversation, we gathered a number of real life scenarios from people within Emery. So these were from researchers and from communities of where, cultural awareness hadn't really been considered and sort of poor practice really. And we set up 3 helpful conversations around the region to discuss this further. So I'll now hand over to Abby, who's going to share some of the findings from that report.
Thanks, Louise. Next slide, please. Like you said, my name is Abby Wilson, and I will just be going through some of the learnings that we got from those discussions. ourselves, myself and Louise, we are both researchers as well. And from those discussions, I think it was really brilliant to have researchers and members of the public from different communities in the same room, where everybody kind of feel they are in a safe space to be able to open up. We have the researchers who are kind of talking about how sometimes they can feel very nervous about going to some of the communities, not sure, being, saying the wrong thing, saying the right thing, not sure how they'll be perceived or received. So these are some of the stuff that came out from majority of the community's members, where the things they think is going to really be helpful as well, if as researchers we're aware of some of these things. Most of it, there's nothing new, but I think it's when you're in the same space and the same room and it's more of a dialogue, then I think it was very helpful. So first of all, we have the awareness of highly taboo and highly sensitive subjects across different communities. Awareness of stereotypes and labels applied to communities as portrayed by others. For example, in the media. And this one was a very interesting one, because we have to remember that these communities, people from these communities, they themselves, they are aware of some of these labels about them. So it's not as if they're not aware of it, but it's very good. And if you're going as a researcher, for you to not pretend or not to kind of make the effort to be aware of it as well. Also, we have appropriate methods to engage with communities according to cultural sensitivities or the need of that community as well. Be aware of own unconscious bias. And I think that one as well, when you think about it as well, when we, as researchers, when we are aware of our own unconscious bias, it does help, because we kind of think about how we kind of dealing with it as well before we go into some of these communications or engagement with people as well. Recognize own cultures and think about how we form relationship. This was very interesting when it was brought up, and I think one of the community group members did mention there as well, to say, when you as a researcher recognize your own culture and think about how you form relationship, there's a way you are able to kind of appreciate why you do what you do. And that, in a way, should be able to help you as well, to be able to appreciate why you can see the differences. So I do this way because of this. All right, I can see this culture, this is how you do this, and this is why you do it as well. Take time to prepare and thoroughly research before approaching groups. That one and the other bits about allocating sufficient time. To be able to do every other single thing on all the slide, it takes time. You need to just not rush into some of these things, to be able to just make sure we take time, we're not rushing to it. When we go to people that we're speaking with them, I know I work as well, I'm a researcher, I deliver research. We're thinking about target timing and stuff like that. They did mention that those on the other hand, they could sense it when they kind of feel you're rushing them or you're in a rush yourself. Next slide, please. Refer to diversity calendar during the planning or research to avoid cultural, religious event, things like you wanted to, like for example, Ramadan period, you wanted to be sure, like those are the things that can easily put people off. Like it might happens innocently where you didn't even think about it. You're ringing somebody and say, oh, can I speak to you about this? Like, but that's something to do with food or anything. And they kind of just thought, no, it's not your right time. But like you mentioned earlier, Matt, it takes just few seconds, like where people could just lose interest as well about what you're trying to say to them. Be patient and non-judgmental. I think that's very self-explanatory. Spend time to build rapport with communities and develop a continuous working relationship with them. We'll talk about connection and things like that. It does take time. One of the things that came up a lot in those dialogue and meetings was the fact that sometimes community things like researchers are just interested in like, just take part in this research. After that, they're gone. They're not kind of thinking about developing a continuous relationship with them. And then somebody else come back another time again. I wanted to say like, do you want to do this? They just, I think what came across that day was like, that is how this whole idea of being used could come across as well. So we should always think about when we're trying to develop a relationship with communities to think about how to develop a continuous working relationship with them as well. It's not just important for institutions to be ready to work with communities, but communities to also be ready and willing to work with them. This one, I think most of the time, because we have these conversations, it's been an ongoing, everybody's trying their best to make sure we raise awareness and develop and improve on all these areas. But sometimes we need to stop as well to kind of take time to find out that we might build our team, we might have all this training, we might think we're in a position where we're ready to approach some of these communities. Are they ready? Do we want to take a bit of time to find out? There could be other issues, other things going on within that community that's not making them ready for us approaching them. So it's good to find out about that as well, so that we're not taking it like if they're not accepting us, it might not have to do with us directly, but there's still there might be other things that we need to know about that as well. Also, reach out to educators and communicators within target communities. Sometimes some people use the term leaders, but I think the important thing that came across that day is like the educators and communicators within target communities could be anyone. Sometimes some communities we have is the women who are actually the communicators within the communities, just for us to find out who they are or those already existing, working with them to kind of build on that as well. Be flexible and ready to adapt, to not generalize about community groups and avoid adopting one heart-fitting approach to engagement. I think they did spoke a lot about this then as well, where sometimes people could just think this particular group, probably like a Asian community, we just group everything together, thinking that's the way it is. They did say they will appreciate if we kind of take time to kind of find out about specific, personalize it, don't just kind of bag everyone to the same heart as well. Next slide, please. Co-produce and co-create with communities. I think this comes up a lot. They don't want us to just use it lightly. They want it to be like every stage of involvement as well. Be mindful of terminology used. Make it simple, make it in a way that they can understand what we're talking about as well. Ensure consistency in the categorization of ethnicity groups in the absence of option for self-identification. I think it was interesting listening to them when they were kind of describing this, really, where somebody will be like, they will have completed probably a questionnaire or something about research where there could be a category where they say Black, I don't know, put particular Caribbean Black or Black, and some would like white. It's just, there is no standard around that. And I think from what they were saying that most people find it very frustrating and think more efforts could be put into that. And then if possible, they would love the idea to kind of make it like self-identification as well. Let people be able to say, this is who I am themselves. Awareness of dialectical differences when translating and interpreting. What came out of that as well during the meeting was the fact that sometimes we just kind of thinking, for example, is a hoodoo, something like, it's the same. We have to be aware that within particular community, within some of these dialects, there are still some differences in it as well. Just don't to assume they're the same, to make the effort to research and find out. So that way we're translating now and get interpreters, so interpreting materials, we kind of like, and going back to the same thing, like, we're thinking about like, don't just use one heart fit all for it to take time to find out as well. Consideration to be given to production of research materials to promote inclusivity. These are kind of self-explanatory, plain English, easy read, translation in the languages. And next slide, please. Yeah, so this one is just to say, when we were introducing this, that this is what we use this helpful conversation, and we found it to be very successful in raising awareness about research, getting researchers and members of communities to speak and talk in a very safe space. So what we do after that, when we did this particular one for cultural awareness, after read, we produce a case report, and then we circulate it as well. And we produce a flyer from it as well. So this is something that we've been doing and we found it very useful. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, fantastic, Abby and Louis. Loads of really positive comments in the chat for you and for all of the speakers. Really helpful stuff. I'm going to really sort of set us up for an interesting conversation later. I've been keeping an eye on the chat. I don't think there's any unanswered questions. You've been doing a fantastic job of asking questions and someone else answering them. We love that. And also people have been putting loads of really interesting other kind of resources and materials in the chat as well. We do have a couple of minutes now if anyone's got any particular questions for any of our speakers. If you want to, I'm not sure I can see hands, but yes, I can. If anyone wants to put their hand up or off chat, or pop something in the chat, then please do now. And if not, just give that a second. No, okay. To say thank you again to our speakers. As I say, really interesting range of materials, looking across all kinds of different ways in which we can get into the different sort of places and spaces in order to much more appropriately raise awareness of research opportunities. We're going to go into breakout rooms now to carry on that discussion. I think one of the team's going to kind of talk us through that. Who's going to do that for us?
Yeah,
Will.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Thank you again to the speakers for some great presentations. That was really great. So yeah, we're now going to move into kind of the breakout group discussion part of this workshop. So you'll all be moved into breakout groups. I've been kind of putting you in those various groups as you've been joining. Each group has a facilitator from the HRA that will make themselves known and introduce themselves, as well as a note taker that will be doing some notes on the session. The objective for these kind of discussion sessions, and we've got one followed by a short 5-minute break and then a second one, both around sort of 20-25 minutes, as you'll know from the briefing, is about working together to explore this theme and produce a set of kind of top tips to support best practice in these areas. As part of your kind of registration for this workshop, you were asked to kind of share any personal thoughts or priorities or areas of importance, and we've had loads of great feedback. So we're going to use that as a bit of a basis, but I won't say too much more. I'll pop you in your groups now, and the facilitators will kind of run through the process and how we plan to do that. So on the screen at the minute is just a brief overview of some of the information that was shared, but as I said, the facilitators will run through that with you as well. So I will now open the rooms, and you will all be kind of invited in. So bear with me 1 second. There we go. You should all now have an invite on your screen to join a breakout group.
Thanks, Will. Brilliant. Right. So we've got a little bit of, let me make sure I've got chat up. A little bit time now where we can kind of bring some of the discussions that we've just been having in our individual groups and some key points. We don't need to bring it all in because that's why we've had note takers and facilitators, and we're recording those sessions to make sure we've got the richness of the discussion. But it'd be really great if people would be happy to share kind of the most interesting, the most exciting part of their conversation they had in their groups. So feel free to do that in the chat or pop your hand up. We'll give people a little bit of a chance to find their hands up button or their courage. Amanda.
Yeah, I found me courage, surprise. I normally have that. I don't know why, but yeah, part of it, that there are still things in the system that stop things happening. So like when people have so long to put a piece of research together that doesn't actually that they've got time to go and do the pre-work that they need, or they haven't got anything for the pre-work, or to build relationships unless it's been done in another piece of research. You haven't got those people primed to work with you again. So there is a lot of systematic stuff that we need to look at before change can happen, and that's some of the barriers that it is quite hard to shift. But obviously we'll give it a go in the Make It Public campaign.
Brilliant. Thanks, Amanda, and thanks for being the first to speak up. Interestingly, we exactly saw that during the kind of the initial stages of COVID, where the rates of patient and public involvement in studies that we were starting to see in those early stages of the pandemic just dropped from something like 80%, which is what the normal kind of rates is, down to about 20%. And that tells you it's because it wasn't embedded, it wasn't a natural thing to do at the time, and there wasn't enough time to then do it afresh, which is why we've been doing so much work in that area. So I think that really is still a problem. Naho.
Yeah, so we had a really great discussion. One of the things that we concluded was that there's lots of things in the bulleted themes that could be grouped together, and in a way accessibility is really key, but that relies on thinking about multiple formats or tailoring opportunities and interactive, so the different formats that you can think about, and that really is important. But also then thinking about emphasizing on trust, and that connects up with taking steps to understand the people you're trying to engage with, which can come from connecting with existing channels where people have the knowledge base, and that again links to sort of the importance of peer support. So lots of overlapping things, all of them important, but the things that rise to the fore from that is about accessibility and trust, and without those, just broadcasting opportunities in itself is not going to help really bring people in to take part in research.
Brilliant. Thanks, Naho, and thanks to your group. Christine. We might have lost you just at the crucial moment, Christine. I don't know if you can still hear us.
Whole time he's researching.
You're breaking up, Christine. It might be worth just flipping your camera off, and then maybe there'll be enough to squeeze the audio through.
No.
No, sorry, Christine. We're hearing every 20th word. They're wonderful words, but we're only hearing about 1 in 20 of them. If you want to pop your comment in the chat, or we can try again in a minute, then that'll be great. So real apologies for that, Christine. We would have been really interested in what you had to say. Jane.
Just to add that in our group as well, I think accessibility and trust came quite high in that as well, and we agreed that a lot of themes could be grouped under some of those themes, kind of high level themes. It was also raised in our group that building relationships must start long before recruitment, and that sometimes there can be a struggle with time to do that and to properly engage with communities in that way. I see Frances has her hand up, and she was in my group as well, so she may wish to add to that as well.
I just want to, I just wanted to add about the point of view of valuing the patient for their participation in research. I think that's very important at the point of recruitment, and when you're building the relationship with the patient, they have to trust you and you have to value them.
Great.
Okay.
Lovely point, Frances. And one of the things that came up in our group, actually, we talked a little bit about some of the kind of automated tools that are coming online for producing kind of lay summaries and the like, and that I'm sure we're all, whatever part of the system we're in, are going to see an awful lot of lay summaries written by ChatGPT over the next sort of few months, and whether that's an okay thing. If it makes it better, it's okay on one hand, but on the negative, it's about often this is about the wider relationships and respect that gets built in working with patients and the public when you are writing your lay summary or your plain language summary, and you lose that with these automated tools. And so some great advantages, I'm sure, but also some real risk that it becomes a more of a technical task to do these things as opposed to an opportunity to build relationships. Okay, thanks for that. Any other hands up before we bring to a close? If not, just in the chat, if you haven't been keeping on that, some other great comments. Stella, I love your comment. Reinforced me how baffled you are that we're still considering some straightforward matters. That is the way we've changed, isn't it? It's about, you feel like you're just saying the same things over and over again, but we are making progress. Stay with us on this. We are making progress. The very fact that we're together today with such a broad group of people, some of whom we've been talking about these sorts of things for many years, it's the first time we've met you, and that in itself is a real sign of a success. So stay with us. We will get there in the end, but I'm sure we have to keep saying the basics over and over again. Okay, I'm going to leave it there in terms of the wrap up, in terms of summary of the discussion, and if I can ask Will to pick up the next steps and close, but hand back to me for final sort of thank yous, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course, no problem. So in terms of next steps, so firstly, just to say thank you for all the breakout discussions today. And if you've been involved earlier in the week as well, thank you for attending those. I was dropping in and out and I was hearing lots of amazing stuff. So what we plan to do here and with all these workshops is basically take the recordings and the notes we had from each of your breakout sessions and kind of collate and pull those together into a kind of finalized single sheet sort of top tips. So again, like I said before, this might not be kind of getting rid of some and keeping others. It more be like merging what are the underarching themes, what are the key categories that some of these issues kind of sit within. So we'll be producing a finalized version of that built from the feedback at this workshop for here, but then also for the Wednesday and Tuesday workshop we just had. And we will be publishing those on our website, but more importantly, I would say distributing directly to you. These are kind of going to be, we'll sort of smarten them up a bit as well as they look nice. They're essentially for you on the call to use as you see fit, whether it's use yourselves, whether it's share with your colleagues, share at other events like this in future, essentially spread the messages of what we've talked about today further. But I think it's really important just to emphasize and underline that what you've done here today is create a truly kind of collaborative, collective resource that hopefully we can use and push forward. So it's not one organization or one individual. It's been a real group effort. So that's how we plan to take it forward. Myself and members of the project team will be in touch with you in the coming weeks to share that resource and kind of talk about how we can continue this conversational research transparency. But yeah, just to say from my perspective, thank you so much for all your work today, and I'll hand back to Matt.
Thanks, Will. And to add to Will's thanks, big thank you to the team again for organising today. Big thank you to our presenters at the beginning that really kind of, it just fascinating and fantastic content in its own right, but also set us up for a really great discussion. Thank you to facilitators and note takers. Certainly worked really, really well in our group, and I'm sure it did in yours, and in terms of walking us through that kind of conversation. Finally, thank you to all of you, as Will says, for contributing and making this, we think, a really can be a really kind of exciting and interesting co-produced output. Will, you've got your hand up. Is that because we've forgotten something?
No, it's not. It's just one final plug. I've just remembered. So tomorrow is going to be the last day of Make It Public Week. We're having a panel kind of discussion, informal in conversation. That's going to be hosted by the HRA chair, Sir Terence Stevenson, and it's going to feature a couple of people you may have been in your groups today. So Andrew Freeman from ISRCTN, Andrew George from the UK Committee on Research Integrity, Circle Steele, who is a member of the Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Research Advisory Group, and Caroline Mitchell, who is a GP and doctor up in Sheffield doing some really great work out in the communities. So I am going to actually open the tickets up for those events again. It'll be over Zoom as well. So if you are interested in coming along tomorrow, it's from 1 p.m. till 2:30, hearing some discussion, asking some questions. If you go back to our Eventbrite page, essentially where you registered for this event, you should be able to register for that. So just a last minute plug from me there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Nice one, Will. That's it. So thank you, everybody, and hope to see many of you tomorrow. And if not, have a great weekend. And I'm sure we'll be working together on this and the other topics in Make It Public campaign over the coming months and years. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.